what I can tell you for a fact is that every development, every construction that they have done so far, Kellon, is by the laws of Grenada illegal. What has happened to the farmers there is the excavation that Rayneau has done is being linked to the collapse of a road that farmers use to get to their farms. The farmers actually met about 2 weeks ago with the representative for the area, Ms. Kiri James. Of course, she continues to say she has no idea about what is going on, which in itself is a problem because she is the MP.
Now, the relationship between Grenada and the St. Lucia-based firm Construction and Industrial Equipment Limited commenced in May of 2022 when the former NNP administration announced that the company won the bid to stabilize the Molyneux land slippage, which has incurred several cost overruns and missed deadlines for an official reopening. Extensive deterioration of the Molyneux main road in St. George led to its closure since December 2019, resulting in traffic being routed that is, through the village of Mount Morris. Now that the Molyneux Road has been rehabilitated and the land slippage almost abated, Construction and Industrial Equipment Limited seem to have turned to other construction ventures in Grenada. Now, 2 Sundays ago, the Bub Report spoke with a resident from Woodford St. John who raised alarm bells about the company's unauthorized construction of a concrete batching plant, which appears to be violating local physical planning regulations. It is also being undertaken without consulting the surrounding, mostly farming community. In fact, the Member of Parliament for the area, Kiri James MP, indicated that she was not aware of the scope and nature of what was being erected in this pristine community of Woodford and St. John, whose lands have been historically used for agricultural cultivation. We also understand that the Physical Planning Unit has served more than one enforcement notice to the company, but residents say Rayneau Construction continues their work, ignoring the Physical Planning Unit's mandate. Now, while Rayneau continues to ignore enforcement notices, the Physical Planning Unit has in recent time been showing up its demolition mantle against other Grenadians who have also been violating Physical Planning Unit regulations, like the recent unauthorized construction down at Grandance Beach. So we ask, is there a double standard here? Now, before coming to Grenada, Rayneau Construction signed an agreement with the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in April of 2021 for the company to operate a stone quarry in the North Leeward area of Richmond for the next 30 years. The Richmond area is important for Vincentians since many locals go down to the streams to fish and engage in other recreational activity. And of course, over in Grenada, colleague journalist and host of The Narrative, Callistra Faria, has been following this story and joins us to discuss this ongoing issue. And Callistra, first and foremost, thank you for being patient with us and welcome again. I tip my hat to you as the Dean of Media, the Dean of Journalism in Grenada. You are the Dean, Madame, okay? So welcome to the Bub Report for this very important conversation.
Thank you for having me on the program. When the show started, and good morning to your viewers and listeners, wherever they may be. I saw that you have Dr. Mitchell and myself as a meme in your introduction. Don't go there.
Yes, yes. Absolutely.
The Rayneau Construction Group, and that outfit has a few names, a few companies that operates. You mentioned one, Construction and Industrial Limited. They actually just won a bid for the refurbishment of the St. David Secondary School, a school in St. David. They were the highest bid. Their bid was just almost $41 million, and but somehow they were able to win in this open bid that the government had. There were bids of like 29 million, 32 million, and 232 million bid 29 and 40. And strangely, Rayneau got the nod to do that project, which may help in shedding light and answering that question that you asked about just how much of a red carpet is being rolled out by those who need to be protecting the business of the state and the business of the people that Rayneau is enjoying. You pretty much covered a lot of what is in your intro, a lot of what is going on with Rayneau here in Grenada. What I can tell you for a fact is that every development, every construction that they have done so far, Kellan, is by the laws of Grenada illegal. The cement batching plant is definitely illegal. They are continuing to work on it. Even an enforcement notice was served on June 12th, June 10th to 12th last year. It was not until 6 months later, in November, that Rayneau bothered to submit drawings for the batching plant. By then, it was almost complete. My site visit there a few weeks ago showed that it's, I consulted with people who know about these things to look at the videos that I had, and it's completed. So they continue to work up until 2 or 3 days ago, even as they were being served an enforcement notice for another illegal development. They were working on the cement batching plant. And it continues. What planning says is that they have asked them to submit a scope. So from November to now, that scope document has not been submitted, as far as I know, based on what I'm looking into. The scope document requires them to give details of what the activities that they're going to be conducting and performing on the site will be, so that planning can make a determination as to whether or not they must now ask them to do an environmental and social impact assessment, an ESIA. There are times when one can ask for a scope document to determine whether or not an ESIA or an EIA is really necessary. But I am told by those who know and have been in the field for a while, because I've spoken to several experts on this, that in the case of a cement batching plant and the quarry, which is what is going on the Woodford site, that an ESIA is a given, so that this space that Rayneau is being given, while they merrily continue to complete the project, is a step that was not necessary, that they needed to be ordered to cease all work and present the necessary studies that will tell the planning authority what sort of impact the project will have on the area. And the area, mind you, Kellan, is a very sensitive area. It's a lot of arable lands. Farmers are there too. The St. Vincent story is quite similar.
It's very similar, yes.
Yeah, they haven't cut down farmers' cultivation, and they're producing cocoa trees. They haven't done that at Woodford. But what has happened to the farmers there is the excavation that Rayneau has done is being linked to the collapse of a road that farmers use to get to their farms. The farmers actually met about 2 weeks ago with the representative for the area, Ms. Kieran James. Of course, she continues to say she has no idea about what is going on, which in itself is a problem because she is the MP. But she did say to people who brought the matter to her that it's private land, and that they're free to do what they want. I believe that the Minister of the Environment, and ironically, she's the Minister of the Environment, I believe the Minister of the Environment may need to probably read just a little bit more on things that pertain to that, because, I can't go build a nuclear plant on my land in Maran and St. John, or in the backyard, of my mother's property in Victoria. I can't go do that. It's private property. But even if I'm
Yeah.
going to build a house there, I have to get planning approval for
Mhm.
it. So I thought
And
that that
speak,
was
yeah, and speaking of planning approval, now we have a comment here. Cadella is saying that I would appreciate a follow up with key stakeholders to include the government on this matter. Yes, Ms. Henry, and let me also make the point. Kalisha, your camera is turned off there, but let me also make the point that we had the chief technical officer from the Ministry of Infrastructure on this. I know that Kalistra, you've interviewed the Prime Minister on this. You also visited the physical planning unit. Well, it's now called the Planning and Development
Planning and
Authority, I
Development
think.
Authority. Yes, I
Yes,
have.
right? You know, and so you were able to corroborate, in essence, that these people have absolutely no approval to do what they're doing. So let's start with the physical planning, the Planning and Development Authority. What did you find out there? And what is physical planning saying about their inability to enforce best practices here? And then
And
the second part
for
would be what the Prime Minister said about this. Yes.
Well, the Prime Minister, when I asked him about because there are three issues. There's the cement batching plant and the stone quarry at Woodford. Then there is a road that's being constructed from the main road down to Halifax Bay. There, it is believed that Rayneau, while planning, has said to me that they do not have information that will confirm whether or not an aggregates port is being put in Halifax Bay, but this is the word on the ground. This is a word that's what they're doing, and they've done that in other jurisdictions. Build an aggregates port to facilitate their shipping in and out of the aggregates. I mean, that's the business they're in, and then there's the asphalt plant at Boucherjou on government property, where they were allowed to erect an asphalt plant there, which is a concerning development for the people of the community, because there was no consultation, and certainly no study was done in terms of the wind direction and that sort of thing to determine who would be affected by what is being released, the emissions from this asphalt plant. So there are three areas of violation, and none of them, they're not in compliance with any of them with the Planning and Development Authority. Now, when they were served in June of 2024 for the batching plant, they had 28 days to take action, to either stop the project and comply with what the act requires, which is the necessary studies and submission of drawings and reports and so on the activity that's going to be there and the impact. And so they did not do that. 6 months later, all they presented 6 months later, and that's about 5.5 months after that 28-day period had expired, were drawings for the batching plant, which I also saw at planning. So that is there. They've submitted that, and but there seems to be a dragging of feet with the planning authority, and it has come into stark relief when we see what happened on Grandad's Beach a few days ago.
Yeah.
And this is by no means defending the small man or defending what was going on Grandad's Beach. The regulations say you
Mhm.
can't erect a concrete structure on Grandad's Beach.
Mhm.
That's what it says. And
Yeah.
whether it is a CBI citizen or a Grenadian, if it's, we need to follow these regulations if we're running a proper country.
Mhm.
And the gentleman on Grandad's Beach, Kellon, he was served on December 31st.
Mhm.
And a few days ago, which would be about a month and a half later, or 6 weeks later, they moved to demolish him. Now, the
Mhm.
Act allows the Planning and Development Authority to do that.
Mhm.
What is different in the handling of Rayneau is that no action was taken. You can either demolish if the offender does not follow the rest of the processes. Once you get to enforcement, there's some processes to follow, and if you're still
Mhm.
in violation, you can demolish or you can take the matter to court. None
Mhm.
of that was done with Rayneau. In fact, Rayneau was given more time to complete what they were doing. And and they are in the process of doing that. I mean, I have footage of them working up there like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So no court action, no demolition, not even a second enforcement notice, nothing at all. They're simply just sitting and planning, waiting for Rayneau to submit a scope document. And you would think that a scope document would be easy to present since the project is almost completed. They must have an idea of what they're planning to do there. And to have submitted the scope document, but that's November, December, January. It's like 3 months, and the scope document is still not presented, and that
Mhm.
poses, that poses a real problem because you have historical sites in the area as well. Um, where Rayneau is building, cutting the road, which they were served an enforcement notice just this week, I think maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. They were served a second enforcement notice by planning to stop the construction of this road because they have no permission to build a road there, and to comply, to submit drawings and then environmental impact assessment and so, with the view to getting or not getting planning permission to do this, because that's what happens. You submit your drawings, you submit your studies, and then planning decides, no, this can happen, no, this cannot happen, or yes, this can happen. The thing with Rayneau is that what they're doing is so advanced. The road is complete. I was there. The road is finished. They've cut the road down to the bay, and the only thing that planning can now stop, if Rayneau is doing it, would be dredging to put a harbor, an aggregate port down at Halifax Bay, and that's close to in the region of Perseverance there, people to get an idea of what I'm talking about. So planning seems to be unable to enforce fully against Rayneau because when you listen to the comments that the Prime Minister made, it's obvious that Rayneau enjoys some measure of grace by this administration. There are a lot of comments about local contractors, and they need to get their act together and they need
Yeah.
to do better. You talked about cost overruns with the Marlinair project.
Mhm.
Other local contractors who may have cost overruns or delays, and so not being given that same kind of grace, even with cost
Yeah.
overruns, and having to redo the asphalt at Molineux a second time. After that road was done, they had to redo the asphalt. There were problems there that Rayneau admitted was because of their construction. It was their fault, and the asphalt had to be redone. So we have all of that. But they then get a $40 million contract to build a school in St. David.
Mhm.
And when we talk about children and schools, and so that raises another concern, because if you go back in Rayneau's history, you would learn that in St. Lucia, there was an explosion on one of Rayneau's sites. So that safety might be an issue. It was actually investigated by the AFT, the Alcohol and Firearms and Tobacco Bureau of the United States, which you would be familiar with, Kellogg. So, and what was happening there, someone died, a relative of Rayneau died, and people were injured, and they lost their license to use explosives for some time. I'm not sure if they ever got it back, but they did lose it at some point. Someone was welding a shipping container filled with dynamite. Now, that speaks of lax safety procedures as well. So, I think people are well within their rights to be concerned about Raynau's operations in Grenada, given their history in the rest of the Caribbean, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent. They have faced protests from citizens, and they've offended citizens down the chain. And so the citizens, the residents of Woodford are not wrong. And, most importantly, no one spoke to them. No one spoke to the farmers. No one spoke to the people who were living there. There's one woman who had to decide not to do construction anymore on her land because she's in boundary with Rayneau. So basically, her balcony is going to be either looking out at Rayneau's aggregate port on the other side of the road or at the cement batching plant. So she can't build a home there anymore. The noise is going to be crazy. The dust is going to be crazy. And there are people who, there's one woman who lived there for 30 something years, about 30 years. I remember going on a field trip to that house when I was in college. She was my teacher, my English teacher. And so there are real people behind this, and the failure to consult is quite problematic, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, to Cadella's point again about whether, that the physical planning authority should step up. Cadella, I think that's a very important point. So in speaking of stepping up, let us talk about who the current board members are. And of course, when the Planning and Development Authority announced the new board of directors, this is what they said in the press release in part, quote, other areas that will be monitored closely by the authority will be zoning and land use, licensing and registration, identifying and appropriately dealing with false declarations of projects submitted for approval to the PDA, and ensuring that environmental impact assessment guidelines are followed. Where do we go from here? What other leads are you following in this story? Have you been able to reach out to Rayneau? We attempted to reach out to the CEO of Rayneau Construction through a third party, and he indicated that he would not be speaking with us. So we always make a good faith effort to speak to the other side, but we did not get that. So, Callistra, any final thoughts as we get to the next segment?
Well, I too am trying, because of course hearing from them would be important, but certainly the key point here, I'm not really sure what Rayneau can say in it when we look at the fact that they have not complied based on, according to the Planning and Development Authority of Grenada, Rayneau has not been granted permission for the cement batching plant. They have not been granted permission for the road construction, and they have not been granted permission for the asphalt plant at Bushinshu. And I'm not really sure. If you speak to the Mr. Rayneau, he might say that well, we're in the process of complying, but that's about a year after.
Or maybe he would say that he has the blessing of the Minister of Infrastructure and Prime Minister of Grenada as well.
But that's not how it works either. Really, that's not how it works. The Prime Minister cannot, absolutely cannot give permission. There's an act that governs this thing. The law is passed in the Parliament, which the Prime Minister sits in. He cannot. I want to build a nuclear plant in my backyard. I better go talk to him and get permission to do that.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Kellan. And if you guys want to, your viewers, if you want to see the full story, the first story that I published on this, because it's an ongoing and developing story, and there's more to come, you can look in the last edition, the previous edition of the New Today newspaper, not this Friday gone, but the Friday before.
The following Friday.
Look out from the beginning of March for my continued coverage of this matter, more interviews and in-depth research on this matter with Rayneau, as well as a number of other environmentally dangerous and problematic projects, because Rayneau's not the only one, Keller, and you know that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Callistra. Hi, everyone. Thanks for checking out the Bub Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG 10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.